Hi, everyone, and welcome to Boom and Gloom, a Columbus Blue Jackets fan podcast where I talk about the boom, the good, and the gloom, the bad, of our beloved CBJ. I am your humble host, Anthony. You may have seen me on social media platforms using the handle Whaler Jacket, and I am Ohio's longest suffering hockey fan. 48 years old, and I have watched my favorite NHL team, the Jackets, and previously the Whalers, win a whopping grand total of one playoff series in my lifetime. I challenge anyone out there to find a longer suffering hockey fan than me. But lately, I have to say, I have not been suffering so much. Watching Blue Jackets hockey this season has been a sight to behold. Yeah, they have been so much fun to watch. Even when they lose, I'm not, shaking my head in frustration like I did in previous seasons, thinking, this is hopeless. No, not at all. They play inspiring, never give up, never surrender hockey. For all you fans of the movie Galaxy Quest out there. And one of the best parts about this is that no one expected them to be doing this well this season. As I record this, they are currently in the first wildcard position and only 5 points behind the New Jersey Devils. And they played one game less than the Devils. This was unthinkable at the start of the season. With the Johnny Gaudreau tragedy, the coaching change, the front office change, the injury to their captain, Boone Jenner, no one predicted this, including, admittedly, myself and many other diehard fans who follow the team's every move. It has been quite the ride, and here we are in February playing meaningful hockey games. I have to say, I sure like this better than being out of the playoff picture by Thanksgiving. What a ride this has been. Now, I want to talk about my luck for a second here, okay? How things seem to go for me. I am not a Blue Jackets expert, all right? I'm just a fan, just an average fan. But, of course, I do want my listeners, I want you to think, in general, that I at least know what I'm talking about. I would think anyone doing a podcast has to believe they know a significant amount about the topic that they are discussing. I mean, I wouldn't host a podcast on crocheting or computer repair. I know virtually nothing about those topics. So I, of course, want to come across as knowledgeable about the Blue Jackets, even though, like I said, I'm just your average fan. Well, in my last episode, I discussed my predictions for the Blue Jackets defense next season. My bold prediction was that Jake Christiansen would be traded. Then, what do the Jackets do? Like an hour after I record that episode, they sign him to a 2-year extension. I couldn't believe the timing of that. So a little later on today's show, I'll discuss my new predictions for next year's defense. But since the Jackets signed someone an hour after I predicted he would be traded in the offseason, I want to hopefully see if my predictions will cause a similar result. I hereby predict that Matthew Olivier and Dmitry Voronkov will be traded in the offseason. Hopefully by saying that, extensions for those two gentlemen will be announced soon. Honestly, I don't think either of those gentlemen are going anywhere, but it would sure feel nice to, officially lock them up. 2 nights ago against Vegas, Olivier received the donkey hat from his teammates. Now, he played well, but I thought that was a little surprising that he got it. Now, another Blue Jackets fan on Blue Sky had a theory about this. She said it was because they were celebrating him signing his extension, and the team just hasn't made it public yet. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? To lock down Olivier for a few more years. And yeah, he has been slumping offensively lately, but the physicality, his toughness, the leadership that he's brought to the team this year, that stuff's invaluable. His character too. I mean, I just love listening to him in interviews. He just seems like a really good dude and just a good teammate. The guy that everyone wants in their locker room. So I do really hope that he sticks around for a while in Columbus. Let's see. I also prepared some notes here to discuss the Jackets' inability to win the second game of a back-to-back. And what did they do last night? They go out and beat Utah 3-2 in overtime and win the second half of a back-to-back. Had to delete all those notes. Am I onto something here, though? If I talk about something on this podcast, or even prepare to talk about something, does the opposite happen? Let's try it out. Okay, I already said that Olivier and Voronkov would be traded, to hopefully manifest an extension. Now that I think about it, I'm not even sure if Voronkov is going to be an RFA. I think he is, which is why I said it, but I think he's going to be an RFA. But here comes another attempt to manifest some good Blue Jackets fortune. The Blue Jackets will never go on a 10-game winning streak this season. And they'll also lose to the Red Wings in the outdoor game on March 1st. There. Hopefully I've helped out the team. Opposite effects predictions. Let's move on. All right. Question. Is Elvis an average goaltender? And what about Tarasov? I ask this because I have maintained from the early portion of the season that if the Jackets just had league average goaltending, they would be even higher in the standings. At this point, I have to say, the Jackets' goaltending has improved. On this recent stretch, we have seen some strong performances in goal. Last night, against Utah, I thought Tarasov played well. The night before that, against Vegas, I thought Elvis played well. Very well, in fact. Three goals total allowed in the last 2 games. So is that a sign? Is this it? Are the Jackets finally getting the decent goaltending they need to make a run this year? And notice I said decent. I didn't say good. I didn't say excellent. I just said decent. Remember, I was thinking league average is what we need. Is Elvis back? I mean, is this it? Is this a sign? Well, as much as I want to say yes, it is, my take is that we can't draw any conclusions yet. All players in the game of hockey, as you know, including goaltenders, can be hot or cold. Maybe Elvis is just going through, a hotter than usual stretch right now. He may cool off at any time. And I'm sorry to say this because I know there are a lot of people who are high on Elvis at the moment, but I just don't buy it. Again, I'll say yet. Elvis has never really given me the feeling of stability over the last few seasons. Therefore, I always have this terrible feeling that the bottom can fall out at any minute. And I get the same feeling about Tarasov, unfortunately. I'm glad he's playing well. Of course, I want him to play well. He's a Blue Jacket. Of course I want him to play well. I'm glad they're both playing well. But I would not be surprised if it all crashed and burned. And I still think that next year we may be looking at a Greaves and a new goaltender. That type of tandem next season. That Elvis and Tarasov, neither one may be back next season. Things can change. Things can happen. But as of now, the Merzlikins / Tarasov combo does not completely fill me with confidence for the short-term success of this franchise. The short term, trying to get into the playoffs, trying to make a run. I just don't have that confidence right now. We are winning games, and I am ecstatic about that, obviously. But something else that doesn't necessarily fill me with confidence at the moment? The Blue Jackets' secondary scoring. The bottom six are currently not helping out much with the offense. Think about it, okay? In recent games, who is scoring all the goals? The Fantilli line and the Johnson line. With, of course, help from the defense as well. Thankfully, this hasn't really negatively affected the outcome of games. We've been winning. I get that. But I would sure like to see the third and fourth lines step up and put a few in the back of the net soon. Olivier's torrid scoring pace, well, torrid for him, that's dried up. Zach Aston Reese, he has not contributed much offensively. Nothing from Danforth, nothing from Corrali. And I get it that these lines, your third and fourth lines are not supposed to be supplying most of the team's offense. I get that. But I would also like to think that we can count on them to pot a few every once in a while. Let me try my knack for the opposite of what I say working out. I predict the Jackets' third and fourth line will not be scoring any goals in the next few games. There. Trying to help out any way I can. All right, since I'm talking about the forwards, the next thing I want to share my thoughts about, the forward situation when all our players come back from injury. Who stays? Who goes? Who goes to Cleveland? Who sits? Who plays where in the lineup and at what position? Boone Jenner, thankfully, seems to be the closest forward to returning from injury. So let's start with him. When he comes back, where does he slot in? I have a couple thoughts on this. I feel like he can slot in on the wing somewhere, or he can come in as a center. Luca Del Belbaluz. He has been, to me at least, impressive since his call-up. He has fit into this lineup seamlessly. He has shown that he can handle second-line center duties. And currently with Sillinger back, of course, he's been moved down to the third-line center. Therefore, I don't think it is an absolute necessity to plug Jenner back in at center as he, shakes off the rust coming back from such a long injury recovery. I know a lot of people, are thinking, all right, with Monahan out, they're going to want Boone Jenner to jump right back in at center. I'm not convinced just yet. It all depends on what Dean Evason thinks about the composition of the lines. Does he want Jenner at center with Monahan still out? If so, if that is the case, I think we see Jenner slot in at the second line position, second line center, since Fantilli has been playing, I think, well as the number one center. I mean, he's stepped it up. In that case, despite playing well, I think we see Del Bell Blues sent to Cleveland, and then Sillinger returned to the third line. So that means you have Fantilli first line center, Boone Jenner second line center, Cole Sillinger third line center. So if that happens, if Boone does go to center, Del Bell Blues gets sent back to Cleveland. If Evason decides he wants Jenner at wing, though, I think we might see Mikhail Putia sent back to Cleveland instead of Del Bell Blues. Either one. I mean, I think either one could be sent back, but I think in that situation, if Jenner is going to be playing wing, you send a wing to Cleveland. When Monahan comes back, though, things start to get murkier. When this happens, I think we'll see whoever didn't get sent to Cleveland, Del Bell Blues or Putia, we see that person at that time sent to Cleveland. The only other possibility is that, again, my opinion here, is that they waive Kevin LeBanc. And then they let Putia stay as the extra forward. I'm not sure if I like that, though. I think I'd rather have Putia continuing to get a lot of minutes, helping the Monsters on their quest for a Calder Cup. But something has to give here, okay? And that brings me to the biggest mystery of all. Yegor Chinakhov. Remember him? I really wish we knew what was going on with this guy. Last I heard, he was a surprise participant at the Blue Jackets practice last week. But then he left practice early. Not sure what is going on with him, but he's missed something like 30 games now. That's insane. I think he's been out since November, if I have my math correct here. I think I heard that over the past 2 seasons, he has missed the equivalent of a full NHL season. Crazy. And he has a lot of dynamic scoring upside. So let's pretend he comes back, all right? And let's say he does it after Monahan returns. Now what do the Jackets do? Assuming there are no injuries, of course, that would be something, wouldn't it? A completely healthy lineup? Has that ever happened? I don't even know. Well, let's say it does, though, okay? So who sits? Does LeBanc get waived at that point? Let me go through the list of players that will absolutely not come out of the lineup. Okay, so these players will not come out of the lineup. These are like lineup locks. Marchenko, Voronkov, Monahan, Fantilli, Jenner, Johnson, Sillinger. Those are my locks. Almost a lock is Olivier, but he would probably be put on the fourth line. So that leaves 4 players. That leaves James Van Riemsdyk, Zach Aston-Reese, Justin Danforth, and Sean Corrali. Those 4 players. One of those 4 players would have to come out to accommodate Chinakhov's return. And that, my friends, is a ridiculous ridiculously tough decision, if you ask me. JVR and Corrali both provide grit, leadership. They're big bodies. They provide a veteran presence and experience. And JVR's net front presence is like practically legendary. And Corrali's great on the penalty kill. Then you have Danforth, and Danforth is exactly the type of player that Dean Evason was. He's versatile in the lineup. He's undersized but feisty. He's not afraid to dig the puck out of the corners and do the dirty work. And he plays with heart. And the same with ZAR. He plays a great defensive game, can play shorthanded and kill penalties. He plays with grit. He plays with heart. Who the heck comes out of this lineup? Such a tough call. Now, I'm not going to take the easy way out here, okay? I'm not just going to say, I don't know, it's up to Evason, which it is. But no, I will tell you what I think. I'll tell you, if I was in that position, who would I keep out of the lineup? I think JVR stays in the lineup. Then the other three rotating, with Zach Aston Reese being the top choice to sit. I'm not saying I like that, but something would have to give. Someone would have to come out of the lineup. And if I had to pick someone, it's Zach Aston Reese. Second choice, and it pains me to say this because he's totally my type of player, Justin Danforth. I just think Corrali offers, he just has too many intangibles, too many to pull him out of the lineup. And the only other monkey wrench to all this is by the time Monahan comes back, we will be right about at the trade deadline. Don Waddell may make some other moves to further muck up this whole situation. Some of the guys I just mentioned, you never know, they may be traded. So there may be even new faces brought into the lineup. Just impossible to tell at this point, but so fun to think about. Exciting days in Blue Jackets land right now. All right, last thing I want to talk about, the defense for next season. As I mentioned earlier, I gave my predictions in my last episode. And then they went and signed Christiansen to an extension. Now that, of course, doesn't mean he can no longer be traded, of course. That no longer means that. He most certainly can. But the extension that they gave him says to me that Evason and Waddell like him in the Jackets lineup. They would not have signed him to an extension if they didn't see him in their future plans. While it is certainly possible to trade him, it just doesn't seem to make sense to me unless, an amazing deal falls into Waddell's lap and he has really no other option than he needs to trade him. That means, as of this very second, the Jackets have the following defensemen. All right, here we go. Werenski, Fabro, Christiansen, Provorov, Matejchuk, Severson, Johnson, Harris, Goodbranson. 9 defensemen. I want to think that Waddell and Evason like Fabro with Werenski. My feeling is that they don't want to mess with a good thing. They don't want to mess with a good thing and try to replace Fabro, like put somebody else with Werenski. That means they would end up signing Fabro to an extension. First pair for next year, done. Werenski, Fabro. Denton Matejchuk has been solid. The team is something like, I want to say 11-3, if I remember them saying that on the broadcast last night. 11-3 with him in the lineup. With that in mind, my feeling is that he is now here to stay, not going back to Cleveland. Severson's contract makes him currently untradeable and unbuyoutable. Like him or not, Severson's on the team next season. So there you have it. There's 4 right there. Okay, so 4 locks for the team next season. Werenski, Fabro, Matejchuk, and Severson. 4 locks. Then, of course, you have Christiansen, Provorov, Goodbranson. Currently, I don't see them. I don't see Jack Johnson coming back next year. Nor do I see Harris in the Jackets' long-term plans. I don't think he's a liability. Just that he shouldn't be considered to be a lock for the Jackets lineup or the Jackets roster next season. I know there's a lot of talk about the possibility of signing Provorov to an extension. I just don't see that happening. Waddell is going to get some assets for him. Because if he stays, then essentially you're going into next season with the exact same lineup on defense. And I, for one, think the defense needs a small upgrade. It doesn't have to be gutted, but we need a small upgrade. Goaltending and defense are where I think the Jackets need to improve to take the next step. With that in mind, let me remind you of the defensive roster, assuming Provorov is traded and that Johnson moves on. Okay, so for next season, this is what we're looking at. Werenski, Fabro, Christiansen, Matejchuk, Severson, Goodbranson, and I'll throw in Harris for right now. If the Jackets want to upgrade, who moves? Like, who do they ship out? Not Werenski, Fabro. Not Severson or Matejchuk. Matejchuk stays because we want him to stay. Severson stays because his contract kind of forces him to. So that leaves Christiansen, Goodbranson, and Harris. How do you upgrade from that? I say Harris will not be on the roster next year, but it's possible, I guess. You trade him, you waive him, whatever. But what about Christiansen and Goodbranson? I already talked about how they like Christiansen enough to extend him. Does that mean he stays? Like I said, it doesn't make him untradeable. But if you don't trade him, that leaves one person left in your starting 6. Erik Goodbranson. And honestly, I would hate to trade him unless they bring in an upgrade to what he currently brings to our lineup. He is big, he is strong, he's physical, defensive-minded. He's a leader. He's not afraid to mix it up and fight. They would need Erik Goodbranson 2.0, an upgraded version of the type of defenseman he is, the style of defense that he plays. Bottom line, my whole point here is if the Jackets want to make an upgrade, they will have to do so at the expense of Christiansen or Goodbranson. If they do in fact move on from Harris, I guess they could make Christiansen the 7th defenseman or Goodbranson the 7th defenseman. But again, it seems to me like they really like having Jake Christiansen in the lineup. I have to admit, the situation has driven me a bit crazy. I know the Jackets need to upgrade their defense, but it is going to be difficult to do. Someone they like, or I don't know, maybe just someone I like, will have to leave the lineup. Bold prediction time again. One or both of Christiansen or Goodbranson will have to be moved. That's, again, just a bold prediction. There just doesn't seem to be anything else that could or should be done. Unless by some absolute miracle, someone takes Damon Severson off our hands. If Waddell can pull that off, he would be on Gandalf's level of wizardry, Dumbledore levels of wizardry. And Jordan Harris will have moved on. And we'll be looking at 2 new bottom 4 defensemen next season. The final thing I want to talk about today is not Blue Jackets related, but something I really love discussing. Team names and jerseys. And for this particular segment, I'm going with talking about team names here. During the Jackets game against Utah last night, there were survey kiosks that were set up around the arena where Utah fans could vote for their new team name. Apparently, Utah Yetis was the choice. That was what they were going with, the Utah Yetis. But there were trademark issues. The team couldn't reach an agreement with the Yeti brand of coolers and drinkware, which I think is incredibly dumb. They're just throwing away a huge marketing tie-in, huge opportunity for that. They could have been the official cooler and drinkware of the team. There could have been all kinds of product placement opportunities throughout the arena. Yeti tumblers for beer at the games, giveaways that had the team logo on it. I don't know. It just seems like a wasted opportunity for me. And apparently, Yetis was not the only name idea that ran into trademark issues. Venom and Blizzard were also turned down, and there may have been others too. So the team whittled it down to 3 possibilities. The Utah Hockey Club, the Mammoth, and the Wasatch. Yes, Wasatch. What the heck is a Wasatch? The Utah Wasatch. Apparently it refers to a mountain range in Utah. So it would have been similar to calling a team the Colorado Rockies, I guess. But to me, it sounded really stupid. And I guess a lot of others agreed because it was almost immediately removed from consideration and replaced with Outlaws. Your 3 finalists are now Utah Hockey Club, Utah Mammoth, or Utah Outlaws. Friends, I have problems with all 3 of those names. Let's start with the Utah Hockey Club. Please, God, no. NHL teams need names. Don't just call them the Hockey Club. That's what soccer teams do. Don't call them the Hockey Club. That is stupid. There is a small part of me that believes no one really likes that name except the team owners. The team owners keep adding it to the mix of possibilities, hoping fans will embrace it. And then, even if they don't, and I predict they won't, the owners will lie and say, that's what the most popular choice was, and then they would adopt it as their permanent name. That's my fear anyway. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just saying that is a fear that I do have. To me, it's just really, really, really lame. That leaves Mammoth and Outlaws. I'd be okay with Mammoths if there was an S at the end. Mammoths. I looked it up, and it is grammatically correct to say either for the plural form. Okay, you can say mammoth or mammoths with an S. My wife is a speech therapist, and she remarked that adding the S makes it much more difficult to say. Like, it doesn't roll off the tongue. So it would be better to stick with the singular version of mammoth without the S. I just don't like it, though. I think it's just that singular names bother me, which is why I don't like the Avalanche, the Wild, or the Kraken names. I do like the Lightning, though. Avalanche I live with. It's not a huge deal. I can kind of understand, the Avalanche is it can be used more in a team sense because it's made up of many different components. Snow and boulders and rocks, ice, all that stuff together. So I can see that. But I have always thought that the Wild was a super stupid name for a team. And I will die on a hill saying Kraken is a dumb, dumb name. Kraken refers to one mythical creature. One. Not a team. I would have been fine with Krakens with an S on the end. Krakens. But Kraken is one creature. Would you call a team the Godzilla? Think about that. The Godzilla. That is the name of a singular fictitious, is it fictional or fictitious? I can't remember the correct grammatical term here. But it is the name of a singular fictitious creature. Not a team name. Kraken is not a team name. It's one creature. Like calling a team the Medusa or the Cerberus. Digging deep into my Greek mythology here. So it's not a team name. So back to my point, I just don't like the singular term mammoth. Even though, again, looked it up and it said it can be used as the plural form of the name. And then finally we have outlaws. My only problem with it is just kind of the way it sounds. The Utah Outlaws. Utah Outlaws. It's why I really don't like the baseball team name, the Tampa Bay Rays. Tampa Bay Rays. It just doesn't roll off the tongue right. But I guess it's better than the alternatives. That's my vote. The Outlaws. Put an S on Mammoth, and I'm very good with that. Keep the S off, and I'm okay. Just for the love of all that is good in the hockey world, don't pick Utah Hockey Club. Don't do it. And with the ending of that rant, I will wrap up today's episode. Thank you for listening. I don't know if you heard somebody in the other room. I think my wife was playing a game on her iPad, and something went wrong, and she made a loud sound there. So sorry if that came through. Feel free to get in touch with me with any questions, suggestions, comments, co-host requests, or just general CBJ or hockey talk. You can find me on Instagram or Blue Sky as Whaler Jacket. I would be very glad to interact with you and talk hockey. I appreciate you tuning in. Exciting times are upon us. The Jackets are doing well. The Stadium Series, the game is a month away. I will hopefully be back in a couple of weeks with a new episode. NHL will be taking a break for the Four Nations Face-Off tournament, and we'll see what kind of newsworthy events happen before then. Until next time, on Boom and Gloom, take care and go Jackets.